This is Red Hot Reds Live.
Welcome to the show. This is the Red Hot Reds podcast presented by Ohio Sports Talk. It is Sunday at 8 p.m.-ish. We are Red Hot Reds Live, and we are joined today by Doug. Doug said earlier in the week if the Reds scored 24 runs this week in a game that he would join the show. So Doug is here to talk some Reds baseball. So how's your week been, Doug?
Absolutely. That's my only stipulation coming on this show is the Reds have to have 24 runs in an outing. So I'm glad it happened this year. I'm glad to be on the show. Roger, you and Ricky have done an excellent job with this project. Absolutely killing it with your interviews, killing it with your Sunday night shows. I'm excited to have you guys on Ohio Sports Network, and I'm excited to be here with you tonight, Ricky. Roger. I love your knowledge. I love the way you and Ricky, your guys' chemistry. So I'm happy to be a part of it tonight.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, and yeah, we appreciate also you lending us this platform just to go through the usual spiel. Thank you to yourself and Jordan for providing us this platform, being able to talk about the Reds for 2025 season. Please subscribe on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere else you can get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really appreciate all the likes and all that good stuff, because if you like us, then we're going to get more games with 24 runs, I think, in the future is the hope. And we're also thankful for everyone that's joining us live today. We're really trying to get this off the ground every Sunday, a Sunday night recap show at 8 p.m. to cover what's happened with this week in the Redlegs. And this week, obviously, we've talked about the 24-run game, but Doug, this week has been kind of interesting. We have a guy that we signed in the offseason that we were expecting big things, and we've gotten big things from Mr. Austin, nickname now Mr. Awesome Hayes. So what are your takeaways from this week?
Does that not just fit perfectly, Awesome Hayes? Because, Roger, I don't know what life was like before Austin Hayes, but I'm really enjoying life after Austin Hayes so far. The guy has come in and he's delivered on everything that we thought he could be. I think, if anything, we're also getting a little bit more power than maybe we expected, because, he did have that 22 home run year. He dropped back down to 16, struggled last year with a different, with some different injuries and things like that we talked about off air. But I've enjoyed his power. He's given Ellie some protection behind him in the 4 slot. I think with Hayes in this lineup, I really feel good about the Reds 1 through 4, 5 right now, especially 1 through 4. But I feel good, and another guy we'll probably talk about here in a couple minutes. But man, this has been really, really a great start offensively. 10 hits in 5 games now straight. I mean, the offense is kind of clicking and it feels really good.
It does feel really good, and shout out to Carrie. We got Jordan in the chat as well, and also Ricky. He's actually behind the scenes running as producer role, and Ricky's got many hats. He's been great as well. Shout out to Ricky. Forgot to mention him right before we got started, but yeah, it's been great. The stats on Awesome Hayes, Mr. Awesome Hayes. He's been hitting .429 in the 6 games that he's played this week. 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, and slugging .786. So. Yeah, I mean, we obviously know that he's not going to do that for the remainder of the season. It's going to be possibly, a little bit of a tail off. Hopefully not too much of a tail off, but we'd love to have our outfield have a little bit of pop, because Ricky and I have lamented on how the outfield, especially with Steer not being back to 100% and trying to figure out what struggles he's going through, the outfield doesn't have really any pop. Friedl, Jake Fraley, though, which we'll talk about probably a little bit, maybe coming back to Mr. Rake Fraley, I don't know. But definitely, if he hits anywhere near 300 or gets 20 home runs, like you said, that he got in the 2022 season with the Baltimore Orioles and was an all-star as well, I think, in 2023, that's a $5 million steal, right? And we'll definitely take that in Cincinnati.
Can I ask you, when we brought in Austin Hayes, did you have an expectations stats wise of what you'd like to have seen from him? Obviously he's very hot and it's gone very well to start the year, but did you have any 18 to 20 home runs? Can he get to 60 to 80 RBIs? What were your thoughts on him before? I know he with him dealing with injuries and stuff, it's kind of, difficult to really place that, but did you have any, kind of expectations for him coming into the year?
Flatly, No, because the way that the Reds kind of organize their off seasons is that they don't go out and get the big splash. And the 1 year, $5 million, it's a prove it deal. I think Ricky and I talked about it. It was definitely a prove it deal. Now, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what I expected out of him. If it's anything like this, it's way past my expectations because I did not. And definitely we thought that Benson and Fraley would return back to power. And early going, obviously, Benson has had his struggles, and Fraley's got his struggles very well documented up until this week. So I think I expected bigger numbers out of those two guys more than Hayes. But if Hayes can get that production, 20 homers, 90, 100 RBIs, like then the struggles of Fraley and Benson feel less detrimental to the club and the offense, more or less. You know what I mean? Do you have any expectations for Hayes at all?
No, because like I think I kind of what you're saying makes sense to me. When a guy's coming off of some injuries and things like that, and you look at his stats, the last year, you're like, oh, this feels a little underwhelming, $5 million. But then if you look back to when he was healthy, the guy's a good baseball player, a guy who hits in the 270 area. I thought he's a good signing. Now he's a great signing in terms of what he was for depth, but now maybe he could be a little bit more. So I thought, if we could get 10 to 15 home runs out of this guy, can he get 50 RBIs? Can he protect Ellie was the big thing for me, is could we get a bat behind Ellie where you don't have to pitch around him, and, the strikeouts become a little less detrimental when you have a guy who's backing you up who can really hit the ball well. Man, so far, absolutely a home run. These first couple games been special. So yeah, I'm with you there. A wait and see process because this could all fall apart for him. It's a hot start, but this could really go sideways quick, especially in baseball when you go into a slump and you look up and the average is right around 220 and you're, oh, okay, well, this wasn't the guy. So I've enjoyed him so far. He's been a breath of fresh air to start this season.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing that I did expect out of him, he did have good splits against lefties, and the Reds really struggled against left-handed pitching last year. Benson especially. Fraley, I think, as well. Like if he could, raise the floor, I think is a phrase that we used a lot. You raise the floor on the left-handed pitching, it gives us better chances, to win in those games where we're going up against a lefty. And yeah, speaking of a big game, his first game he had the 4 RBIs, and Hayes on his debut hit those 4 RBIs, joining a Mike Moustakas and a Ryan Lavernay as Reds on their first game debut, getting 4 RBIs. Not necessarily the best,
is that company you even want to be in?
Yeah.
I would have rather have had 3 and be in better company.
Yeah.
No, that's funny though.
But yeah, it definitely is a stat out there that the Hayes had a really nice debut and continued it throughout the week to help get the 3 wins that we did get this week. And, we'll talk about the series, I think, in a little bit. But, yeah, any other thoughts about Mr. Austin Hayes?
No, and, I just thought that it was really this week, man. I was down, we can talk about it, the Seattle Mariners game. That defense just absolutely was atrocious. I was like, oh, man, there's nothing changed. There's nothing this. And then, give yourself some time because baseball – it's just going to keep coming. There's 162 games. You could look like the worst team in baseball on what was that, Tuesday or Wednesday, and then come Sunday, you're a world beater and you look like the best team who's ever played the game. So I also got to keep preaching to myself a little patience. There's these highs and lows with hitting. So no, man, I'm very excited about Austin Hayes. Let me ask this to everybody because I saw this on X earlier and we talked about it a little bit off air. If you had the opportunity, and I'm going to preface this a little bit different than the way I did earlier. If you had an opportunity, 3 years, what? Let's go 21 million. 3 years, 21 million. Who would you sign right now, Austin Hayes or Gavin Lux? 3 years, 21 million. Does that seem fair? $7 million a year for one of those guys? Does that seem like a close number?
You know what? That sounds like exactly a Castellini line of thinking in terms of like business. If I have to say, not saying that these guys aren't worth it or worth more. It is still early going, especially for Austin Hayes. Yeah. But based on the fact that I think we were talking about it before the show, Austin Hayes had a pretty rough 2024. He got traded from Baltimore to Philadelphia, then like just quickly thereafter got a kidney infection that knocked him out the rest of the season and did not have a repeat performance on his 2023 All-Star season or, that he had before. So based on what I've seen from both of them in Reds uniforms, I'd be more inclined to sign Mr. Lux to that 3-year, $21 million deal. And I think I mentioned to you as well off air that his versatility really is something that the Reds value. They like guys that can fill multiple positions, that can platoon. You know what I mean? Like Hayes is kind of, at least in the early going, kind of seeming like the slugger that would command $21 million a year. If he is going to be that guy, I don't know if he is that guy. If he continues like this, he might be because he's on this 1-year deal. So I guess if I am the Castellinis, I would bet Hayes to be that if Hayes is willing to sign a 3-year, $21 million deal, sign him now because he might be worth 21 a year if he hits like this.
And I think that's fair. I just was trying to come up with a number, to attach it so it actually had some type of value.
Yeah.
Obviously the actual $1 million figure could be very different. To me, I think yours closer in my heart after a great fun week. It's easy to say Austin Hayes, but when you look at Gavin Lux, a guy who eats up pitches, who does great, absolutely battles at bats, a guy who's 2 years younger, like you told me earlier.
Yeah.
I think, the value is there for him also. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing both of them stick around if possible. But again, we're 22 games into the season. So anything can happen there. But I think it's a fun question because of just how well both the guys have played so far into the year.
Yeah. I think Ricky said sign them both. So I guess if he had that blank check from Phil Castellini or whoever, Mr. Castellini, I think Ricky would sign them both right now.
I'm surprised Ricky hasn't put in for the GM job. I feel like he's got his finger on the pulse. He's got to be the guy coming up through the system, right? Yeah,
and I agree with Kerry. Just put in Lux was on a World Series winning team last year, and he knows how to play, and that's for sure. That's for sure. I definitely agree with that, and I think you can see it so far. He's also willing to do whatever is possible to play. Like he'll go out there and left. He'll play third for the first time in 2 years, right? Like that's what you want out of a player. He doesn't ask questions or moan about where he's playing,
And like you guys have harped on, his versatility makes it where you have to have him out there because he can do so much and he can pick up the slack in different spots. So yeah, the versatility of Gavin Lux gives him a slight edge. Now, if Hayes, hits 25, 30 home runs and, he's got 100 RBIs, it's a different conversation. And we're talking, probably 12 to 15 million a year or something like that when you can put up those kind of numbers. So it's definitely an interesting conversation and a fun conversation because luckily we have both guys for the whole year.
Yeah, for sure. And Ricky and I last week predicted that if we went 3-3 this coming series between the Mariners and the Orioles, we'd be happy. And I don't know, 3-3 sounds great. Like being 500, we don't want to obviously get swept, and we didn't get swept in either series. We lost, unfortunately, the Mariners series, which we'll go into in a second here. But we won the Orioles series, obviously, in pretty emphatic fashion on Sunday. I don't know. Does it feel like 3-3 is fair, or does it feel like we should have done better?
I would say it feels like we should have at least swept the Orioles, and I felt like the Mariners series played out when you watched it. I feel like it played out how it probably should have. I feel like we probably should have swept the Orioles. Does that make sense? I think we should have probably went 4-2 over this span. So I think we probably played under our ability. So I'll say we should have been a little bit better in these last two series, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Mariners series for me, it felt like the old movies of the Reds where they had. They got some good offense, some good production from some certain players like Fraley, from Gavin Lux throughout the series. But like the errors or just the shooting themselves in the foot cost them a game or two, and ended up obviously that the getaway game on that Thursday. That's really the one that really kind of sticks out in your mind. The 4 errors, Fraley getting thrown out second by a mile. That going into the Orioles series, it almost is like you have to win 2 out of 3. Yeah. And for me, when they won that opening game, great. The second game they dropped, and then Sundays. I don't know if you watch Sunday Reds baseball a lot, Doug. Sunday Reds baseball, they were 9-20 in 2024 on Sundays. It's not necessarily our favorite day of the week. They kind of, I don't know if it's just the matchups or it's just like the last game of the series. They just don't have enough. The guys usually that kind of get rotated in, bench players and whatnot. But I saw on Sunday the lineup that was put up, for today, and it was like a game one of the series. It was, Friedel, McLean, Ellie, Hayes, Lux. Like it was the guys that you go out there to win a series, and boy did they. So 3-3 seems fair. 4-2 kind of felt like they should have been, but man, I don't know. It could have been 2-4, and then we'd both be in a much mood.
Worse. We would be in a much worse mood if this was a 2-4 weekend. I think that's completely fair. It just, man, some of these losses, they just kind of, and they stick with you. Like that 11-7 game where the Mariners scored the final 6 runs of the game. That just was so painful to watch. Jake Fraley hits the massive go-ahead grand slam. It feels like everything's turning around after a crappy defensive game. And then the Mariners put on 2 in the 9th to tie the game, and then 4 in the 10th. And that was so deflating, but come back and you battle back, and, it feels a little bit better on Sunday. That Sunday stat though, Roger, 9-20, that is abysmal baseball, man. That is tough. I did not realize they were that bad last year. When you sit down and you like look back at baseball, it's kind of hard to remember it in those kind of chunks, but dude, that is a rough way.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, Carrie makes a good point that I forgot to make as well. Carrie says she got real freaked out that they announced a bullpen day. They had an opener with Brent Suter. And that usually goes nowhere for the Reds as well when they're throwing out, relievers the whole game, because anything can happen. Relievers are, they've been good this season, but you can't expect them to be perfect all the time. And if you put yourself in a hole early, the Reds generally don't have enough offense, except for today. They generally don't have enough to get out of certain holes. But having a Suter start out and actually pitch really well the first 3 innings.
He was on it, man. He was on it today. He looked good. He was fired up to be out there. I loved his energy today. The way he, on that Ellie diving, also almost like the Dennis Rodman basketball moment where he's completely laid out diving for the ball. I mean, that Ellie diving catch and watching Suter's reaction to it, I just loved Suter's energy on the mound today. I thought he pitched his ass off.
Oh yeah, for sure. And his reaction, I think post game said it all as well. He was just like, he couldn't believe it. And to be honest with you, I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe I just seen too many Ellie De La Cruz amazing plays. I was like, yeah, that he could get to that. Like, but then you think about it, like, man, he's 6'5", he's at full stretch. Like that's like a 7, whatever, like 10 reach. Like you're really covering a lot of ground. He's on the second base side. You know what I mean? Like where McLean is like, okay, now that actually not everybody has a shortstop.
And I think the Cowboys sum that up really well, because he mentioned that, yeah, you see Ellie do it, but that doesn't mean everybody gets to do it. And the Cowboy, kind of mentioned how he had a guy who was special behind him, like Suter had today, when he had Barry Larkin. And I thought that was a nice little callback to, the Reds have had some damn good shortstops, but Ellie, man, the athleticism. Yeah, I get upset when he bobbles the routine basics, but days like today where he makes that barehanded, the ball's spinning away from him. Yeah, the guy got called safe, but nobody else makes that play look as close as it was today, like Ellie does. So, sometimes you got to remember that this guy's just a freak, and he's learning and he's figuring out all this stuff as we go. So, I was really impressed with some of his defense today.
Yeah, for sure. And Carrie seems a bit. She's kind of concerned that Ellie might get a little bit injured doing these kind of really stretch out plays. I don't know. Maybe we got to wrap him in bubble wrap sometimes to make sure.
I guess if he was running into walls, Roger, if he was running into walls like and stuff like that in the outfield, and I know I've said that maybe he could be one of the great center fielders in the league, but as long as he's not running into other players or really running into the walls, I don't think, the way guys stretch and the way guys everything do this nowadays, hopefully on defense, maybe legging out a run or something, he could pull a hammy, but on defense, I feel pretty safe about him. But if there was walls involved, then I would feel differently.
Yeah, and I don't mean to jinx him or have some sort of hex on him or that, but like a lot of superstar players play every day. You know what I mean? Like I know it's kind of, we're not necessarily like a load management era of baseball, but like there's guys that play 162 still, or at least 160. And Ellie was one of them last season. I think he's more durable than maybe a lot of people give him credit. Hopefully he's doing a lot in the offseason, maybe to add some weight too, because he's still got that slender frame. And I'm guessing he's going to fill out a little bit. Like I think last show, Ricky and I were comparing him kind of to like a young Barry Bonds, in so much that he's got the speed, he's got the power coming. He just it's just got to grow into his body, grow into seeing pitches, and maybe that's like the high end of his ceiling. And that's not a bad high end, but like
that is one of the highest ends, actually.
yeah. Well, I'm talking about the Pittsburgh version of Barry Bonds.
I know the tremendous, the 300 steals, 300 home runs, the 400 home runs, the 300 steals. I understand what you mean. If we could get Ellie on the juice legally, I think we could even go even further. But no, that's actually a great comp because Barry Bonds was a freak in Pittsburgh. He was an MVP caliber player in Pittsburgh. People forget that he was amazing back then also. So that's a fun comp, actually. Yeah, I think they say that if you break up his career, like from Pittsburgh to San Francisco, it's 2 Hall of Fame careers. Yeah. So it's like I completely agree. Unreal stuff when he was in Pittsburgh. The Gold Gloves. He was incredible. Yeah, for sure. And the Reds have obviously they're 500. They're 11-11. I saw that at this point last year under David Bell, they were 12-9. Wow. So the question I guess I'm trying to set up here is that the Reds have played some tough series. The San Francisco Giants are pretty good at baseball, right? I think the Mariners or Orioles are better than their record. Both teams have won 90 games, last year, and then I think 100 games for the Orioles 2 years ago. But like the Reds have. Do you think? I guess Doug, I'm trying to set up. Do you think the Reds from 2024 to 2025 do you think they've improved? Are we leading this into a Terry Francona question also? Yeah, is that where we're kind of heading? Because have they improved? I think they are a better baseball team because of the starting pitching for one, and I think we have a better lineup healthy right now. If we're looking at today's lineup compared to last year's lineup, I think we have a better lineup today than we did last year. But I also, I've questioned some of Terry Francona's decisions. Yesterday, why didn't he bunt with Ellie on third with Espinal at the plate to tie up that game? There's some questions in between there that I've kind of wondered, but I also question David Bell all the time. So I think as a baseball team, we are better today than we were last year. I think that also we got to take into consideration, we watched a lot of David Bell manage, Roger. Mm-hmm. So I think there was a lot of more emotion built up over time. And I think we got to give Terry some more time. I've been very critical because I just felt like he's not pulled the right strings early, and we've left some games on the table like we talked about just a little bit ago. So I think we're just a little bit better of a team this year. Yeah, Ricky's putting out there that he feels that we're a little bit better. He's Francona is, I think we've talked about a little less emphasis on the analytics, as David Bell was kind of a little more beholden to it, and that's kind of like I'm going into as well. Is the other thing that I feel that is markedly different between the 2024 Reds and 2025 Reds is they're actually, I think they're running into outs less. They're running into situations, aside from Jake Fraley on that Wednesday or Thursday game, but they're getting thrown out less at a less rate than they did last year, and they seem to be not just running at every chance. I mean, Ellie De La Cruz is kind of an example of that. I think he's up to 5 steals now, but for the first 16 games, he only had 3 steals. So he's had 3 in the last, 6 games this week. So he's had 3 this week. He's up to 7. He's up to 7, Roger. 7, so he's got 4. Okay. So he started. Yeah, because he had 2 or 3, 2 yesterday and 1 today. So yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, he's at 7 now. He's putting it on a little bit here at the last couple. So yeah, maybe as the offense is warming up, maybe Ellie De La Cruz is going to be warming up the steals as well, which would be good too, because we have some games where it's hard to manufacture runs, and we know last year there were some games where we kind of pulled it out with some Ellie magic, some, like just putting pressure on the defense, putting pressure on the base pass to win some games. But it felt like there was a lot in 2024 where David Bell kind of had the green light for everybody and just would kind of run in and out or just get in some bad situations on the base pass that would maybe cost some games, definitely cost some runs. And it definitely cost them games. I remember wondering why certain guys were going on certain plays, and you're running yourself into trouble. We've seen it only a couple times early in this year where you're kind of like, the third base coach sent Hayes and he got absolutely gunned down at home on a great throw from O'Neill. It's just, managing's tough. And I like the idea that Terry Francona is more of a gut guy, because, we've got to see the other side of that with David Bell for those years where it's, by the book, what does the numbers say? What's this situation call for? And, we're going to switch back and we're going to go a little bit more, old school manager. So I gotta be patient in my own right, but it's early, very early.
Yeah, for sure. And there have been some games where there have been a bit head scratchers, obviously, that we feel like we could have won. And maybe there's still a feeling out process for Terry or Tito to figure out like who needs to go where. I feel like the bullpen is in a pretty good spot. Obviously, Pagan had a pretty rough outing on Thursday. I feel like we're talking about this Thursday game a lot. If that Thursday game went different,
Thursday game was rough, man.
Yeah, if it went a little bit differently, I feel like we'd be feeling a little bit even more. You know what I mean? Like we'd be a winning record and whatnot. But I don't know.
Well, we watched Hunter Green get touched up. That sucked. He went up there and he hung what two what were those, two sliders that got taken out deep. He hit a couple guys. He was struggling. So it happens. Pagan struggled, but I still think Pagan is a very good pitcher. If he's our setup guy for Diaz, if they get comfortable with Diaz back in that position, good. If Diaz is the setup guy for Pagan, I feel pretty solid about that. Yeah. Every now and then it's going to be the other team's day. So I'm good with what we've done so far. I think, as the year goes along, when Terry gets into his groove and he's making his decisions, wheeling, dealing, we watched a lot of good baseball teams that he managed play really good ball. So I have trust in him. I think, the year off, year plus off, let's give him some more time and see, around 60 games, how we really feel about his managerial style.
Yeah, for sure. And Kerry says, what are we going to do with Diaz? I'm not sure exactly yet. I like the approach that it's
too many people.
Yeah, I think Pagan, it's his job to lose. And I know he didn't have a great outing the last time he was out there, but he's shown that he can be that closer. He's got enough experience, to be that guy. He's got, I think, a good enough sense of he's not going to blow guys away. He doesn't have the great strikeout rate that kind of Diaz had in 2023, but that's still kind of the concern I have with Alexis Diaz, is that he's not striking out his guys as much as he did in the past. I'd like to see if he's looking like he is in 2023 with that all-star season he had. Yeah, maybe, we look to put in Diaz the eighth to be the setup guy and see what he's got. But I don't know. Right now, I think it's Pagan's to lose, and I don't know. I don't know if trading Diaz.
Who are you getting for Diaz though? Who's going to take a guy who's a little bit wild? Who, yeah, he had an all-star caliber season in 23, but he's a walk-heavy guy, and I don't know. I don't think Diaz would be the first call I'd make if I needed a closer type guy. And the Reds closer's actually sitting in AAA right now, throwing 103 every other pitch. No, I'm gonna keep beating that drum. I hope he comes up and is the closer someday.
And we'll touch on that later. He didn't have the greatest week though, but he still got the stuff. I know. To answer Kerry though, I think it'd be more for prospects. To be fair, yeah. I don't think Diaz is getting major league talent, at least right now. He's obviously coming off of rehab and all that, so it's not like he's major league. Doing major league stuff right now. He's coming from a little bit of a setback from the spring training. So I think it's more likely that a team that's contending would trade for him for prospects. That would be my thought process. But that would also mean that the Reds possibly are in contention. So I think they want to keep him as much as they can. And if they have closer by committee or whoever's got the hot hand, as long as the job's getting done, as long as we're closing out games, I'm good with either one right now. Well, I'm good with Pagan now, and if Diaz comes on the scene, I'm good with him too. So
well, that's the way you got to look at it, because then you're putting Pagan in the setup spot, and you feel really good about him in the setup spot. So I'm with you there. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. And we touched on the Mariners series. Do you have any other thought process? I know the errors are killing me. At least seeing the 4 errors, 2 of them being Elly De La Cruz, and I think it really feeds the haters, if anything, to have that kind of situation. Is there any other takeaways from that Mariners series?
I guess, is it a hater thing to say, there's some of that he could clean up? He should clean up. Again, the dude's a phenom, but the basic plays still have to be made at a high level. And for whatever reason, he just struggles a little bit with the basic plays. I mean, that's just it is what it is. He leads the league in errors for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a fact on the air situation part of it. Yeah. I mean, he's a phenom, but errors.
Yeah. What I was meaning is like that fueling the haters of like, they want him out of shortstop. They want him in the outfield. O'Neal Cruz situation, which you did mention he had a good throw and he did, but O'Neal Cruz has kind of struggled this season for the Pirates, but.
Oh, I meant Cruz for Baltimore. He gunned down Hayes at home.
Okay. Well, never mind.
No, I know. Now I see what you mean. No, I meant Cruz for Baltimore.
My bad. O'Neal Cruz has been struggling for the Pirates in the outfield, and I don't want that to be Ellie's fate. I know he probably wants to play shortstop in his heart as well, but I don't know. I think we talked to Clay Snowden. Shout out to Clay Snowden. He had a take on some other show. I don't think it was on ours, but he thinks he could be the everyday third baseman possibly. And since he's got that rocket arm, it makes sense to make that throw across the diamond. I mean, maybe if they can get someone to play shortstop. Edwin Arroyo is someone in the minors who's a hot prospect that we got in a trade. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I meant by that. I think Ellie will figure it out. Obviously, It's very frustrating that his fundamentals can kind of lead him to boot the easy plays, but then make spectacular ones. But I think he's in the right position right now.
Yeah, Larkin had 75 errors from over a 4-year span. That's absurd. 75 errors. Jesus. Yeah. What? I mean, I get the reason, but the difference is between Barry Larkin and Ellie De La Cruz is the athleticism, the height, the ability. Like when you look at Ellie De La Cruz, you could see him playing a lot of different places. I think that's where the idea comes from. It's not always necessarily, he's booted the ball around, he's made some bad throws. It's the concept of, okay, this guy's a gazelle. He could play in the outfield and it would be seamless. I understand that like there's a growth process. There's you got to figure this stuff out. I think it's more about looking at the guy and thinking, whoa, why, this could be an everyday center fielder based on his stature, his speed, all that kind of things. I totally understand. He is a plus shortstop. I just think visually sometimes you're like, wow, this guy should be an outfielder. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't know if they've ever asked Francona about it. I think he's reiterated that.
I think he would just spin it and say, no, Ellie's our shortstop. And because that's what you have to do as a manager. I mean, there's behind closed doors conversations, which I'm sure, there's been at least a conversations happen probably in the Red system that maybe he should move, but I think he's going to be there for the long haul. And I did not realize that Barry Larkin used to be awful before he was an MVP.
Yeah.
75 errors in 3.5 years. That's wild.
That's a lot. Yeah. And he's probably not going to third anytime soon because as Ricky and Kerry have been pointing out, Marte obviously today had a great day, but he's been looking better since he's been called up again, his second RA call up this season. But definitely had a great day on Sunday. Him and Austin Wins, just to roll off that stat, Marte and Wins were the first Reds teammates to have 6 RBIs for the Redlegs since 1920. Like, think about that. We were making statistical, historical statistical, infutility with earlier when they got the 1-0 losses. Like, they were looking horrible offensively going back to like the dead ball era, possibly losing a 4th straight game 1-0. Now we're like on the other end of it where we're like the hot team scoring more runs than anybody else in all of Sunday. But anyway, and then Marte had 7 RBIs as well today, which I don't know. Do you know how many Candelario has on the season?
Isn't it 8?
Yeah. So like,
okay.
Yeah. So is it just a, the Orioles packed it in, like they just got some garbage?
That had something to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a grand slam off of a guy who doesn't pitch, but Roger, let me ask you. Look, if you're the manager and you know that there's a price tag with Candelario that comes with this, how can you watch these guys do this, play so well, and not say, maybe Candelario's not our guy? I mean, how long are we going to play yo-yo with Marte before we just say, hey, this is you, third base, this is your season? Candelario's not, he's just not. I know he's a slow starter, but it just feels like we're kind of dragging this on, and I think everybody knows the answer is, can't we just eat the money and say, hey, our bad? And he goes and signs and gets some at bats with a contender, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe this might be the last season that we see Candelario. I don't see him doing it this year. Having him 3 years and this being the second year of the third-year deal, $15 million a year. I don't see the Castellinis eating it unless they go on a real hot streak. But he might be a part of that heating up because he's notoriously known for having terrible Aprils but great May and Junes. So you know what I mean? Like I think it might be a waiting game until that point. If he's still hitting 100 in May and then going into June. Yeah, maybe there's a hard look at that to see, if Marte is also, if he's ascending and Candelario's descending, maybe. I can see it. But we saw kind of two halves of seasons from Marte, a really good one in 2023 and then a really bad one in 2024. So which Marte are we going to get? I think is the play. It's like we're trying to figure out like, okay, Candelario stinks right now, but like is his floor better than what Marte is giving us right now? And I don't know exactly if that's that's a debate, right? And that's probably what's happening in behind the scenes with Tito and Brad Meter and Nick Kroll. If they're gonna try to platoon them and try to figure out like which guy is hot, we'll put him in and figure out the matchups maybe because Candelario also has that switch hitting ability which could be valuable. I'm not sure.
But does he have that ability, or can he just swing on both sides?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's a good point.
it just feels like we're kind of stuck with Candelario, in my opinion. Like there are some plus sides to him, but sure, but like it feels like, and then we got guys in AAA who are right there ready to play also, and it feels like we're stuck holding a spot for a guy who's not a long-term play.
Yeah,
I know he's a switch hitter. I'm just joking. But he feels like he's taking a spot from a guy who has more potential now.
Yeah,
and I feel like we're wasting at bats doing it that way.
That's true. I don't know. Candy, is kind of it's tough because he's also the veteran leadership of the team. I think he's the most experienced out of all the players we have in the roster.
We got Jose though.
Yeah. Once Stevenson comes back, Trevino becomes a bench player as well. So, like, I don't know. It's a good question. And they're talking about possibly trading Candy in the chat. And I don't know what you get from him. The only way you can get anything from him is he heats up. If he heats up, then he's helping the team win at least a little bit. I don't know. It's a good question. 2025, I think, at least from the front office perspective, I think they can compete. The division is there to be had. I mean, the Cubs are probably going to be the best team, and it seems like that right now, at least because they have really good offense. They lost a starter, but they have some guys
they lost Steele, didn't they?
Yeah, Justin Steele is out for the year, but they have some other guys. A guy named Brown's been stepping up for pitching. But anyway, it's not a Cub show. We definitely have the horses ourselves to get us 162 games of 9 innings. You know what I mean? Like I feel like at least the front office perspective is we're going to compete now. And if they don't, if it is like August, or September, and Candelario's hitting 150, and they're not in the even the wild card chase. Yeah, maybe. But right now we're not there yet. Maybe that's a hard decision they got to make later. I don't see it right now. And I don't even know what you could get for Candelario on the market if he's going to be what he is right now. I think it's a DFA situation for sure.
Not much.
No, for sure. So, but yeah, I don't know. There's also
Carrie's cracking me up in these Candy jokes in the chat. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, and I think Ricky, echoed your opinion. He said that he's not a switch hitter; he's a switch swinger. So
switch swinger.
Yeah,
well said, Ricky. Well said. That's what the show's lacking tonight. They're lacking. Ricky's just razor sharp. I'm just a little bit behind. Ricky would have had that out there very early, and I apologize to the viewers tonight.
No worries. But yeah, it's this time of show that we're gonna profile what we call our red hot red of the week, and I don't know if you've got one locked in. All right, so who's your red hot red of the week?
It's got to be Jake Fraley, right? It's got to be the Rake, Jake the Rake Fraley. He's been incredible this week, incredible. It makes you forget about how awful he was before this week started. It makes you forget how awful he's been in the outfield to start this season. I am so happy for him because I was writing him off. I had him on the candy train trying to get him out of here, and he has absolutely turned it around in this last week and a half. He's got his average up to 250. He's got eight RBIs. He's got 2 home runs in the last 4 games. I'm very impressed with Jake Fraley the last week and a half. So give me Jake Fraley as my red of the week.
Yeah, for sure. I think he made up for getting thrown out at second with that grand slam that he followed up with. Unfortunately, couldn't close the door on that one to win that Mariner series. But yeah, having Rake Fraley back is definitely a plus, especially the outfield. I actually had 2 in case that you took one of mine. My guy that's red hot red of the week is definitely Mr. Austin Hayes. We talked about him a lot, and he's had a great week, hitting 429 with 3 home runs. But also my other guy is Gavin Lux. He went 11 for 21 this week and scored 6 runs. He doesn't have the power. I don't know if he will. That's kind of the kind of mark against him. We're putting him out in the outfield, a lot, but he does not have outfield power. He doesn't really even have like elite infield power. He's a slap hitter. He hits from the left side, which is valuable, I think, for the Reds lineup. But he had a heck of a week. He went 4 for 4 in one game, and he's been hitting really well. And I think he's got to be in the lineup every day if he's going to be hitting like this, for sure.
Definitely. I like him. I like him hitting in that fifth spot right there too. I think, we get another guy up who battles after we get Hayes' power, then we get back to Lux, and that sets the table kind of for that second half of the lineup. Hayes is a great choice. Like you said with the power, though, he had his best home run season was 10 home runs. So we cannot expect, home runs out of him. But man, I've been impressed with the way he battles and the way he plays so far this season.
Yeah, and then Carrie mentioned about a guy that got called up in the middle of the night, Randy Wynn, which I didn't know too much about him. 32-year-old that pitched 1 inning for the Reds today. I mean, hey, hats off to him. He got part of history with that 24 run outing for the Reds, and
that's such a crazy thing. You get off an airplane and you just walk over to the ballpark, and then hey, we're gonna need you to warm up. Yeah, you've got a massive cushion today, but hey, we're gonna need you to get in there and throw an inning tonight. Baseball's cool like that because when these guys get called up and they come in and they do their job well, it's a nice tip of the cap to a guy like that who stayed ready and was ready to go even after the flight. So shout out to him for showing up today. That was nice.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like Ricky says first major league strikeout for him and the save for Mr. Randy Wynn.
Wait, what? How does saves work anymore?
So it's when you enter the game, and I'm not sure exactly if it's like a 3-inning issue or what was the 1 inning. It's definitely a situation where you're just kind of like, oh, okay, this is different because it's.
I thought it was a run amount. I thought you had to be within 3 or 4 runs. I'm confused, but good for him. If so, geez, that's awesome.
There's like something in the rule book if you finish the 3 innings of the game, last 3 innings of the game, no matter what like the score is, I think it's like 3 inning save. It's very strange. It's like back when I think Josh Beckett in the World Series, I think pitched like the last 5 innings of the game and got the save, but he wound up winning the World Series. Something weird like that. Like baseball's got these weird kind of things like that, and cool. There was another one that happened, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, I like to call Mr. Wynn a company man because I'm pretty sure that he'll probably be sent down pretty soon and then probably back up in the middle of July in a game that you were like, where'd this guy come from? But
he's taking the flight back now to AAA, unfortunately. Yeah. But good showing up today, man. Good showing up today.
Yeah, for sure. And hats off to him with that first strikeout and definitely got his first save, even though, it is a befuddling stat to say the least. But yeah,
can we not make that a save anymore, guys? At least make the game to get a save. The game should be in the balance, in my opinion. Like that's what a save is you come in, your team's in a close game, 3-run, whatever, 2-run, and you nail it down. Like that's a save to me. Like, but shout out to him. That's not meant to take it away. It's just I think a save should be more important.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a weird stat, and I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, moving on, we have hopefully our new popular viral segment of the Reds Facebook comment of the week. Ricky, I think you had one. Let's see. This one says, oh boy, I don't care if he's the quote unquote best player of the team or not. Ellie needs to be benched for a couple games.
This was after the Mariners game. It had to have been, right?
I don't know. It might be after.
It had to have been.
Game sometimes.
I don't know, but like that was the game where I felt like everybody was like, this was bad. I feel like that this comment had to be after the Mariners game.
Yeah, the 2 errors.
To me, this is, and you know what? the next game he hits a home run or whatever, didn't he? He hit a home run the following game, and everything, and we felt better against
the first game of the Orioles game.
Yeah,
3-run
Ellie and McLean hit 3-run home runs. That was the game right after people were like, yeah, give him a couple of days off. And I might have been one of those people, but I'm very hot and cold with my fandom. But I think he's the best player on the team, dude. He's one of the best players in the league. It doesn't always look like that every night, but we are a very fickle fan base because we've been pushed down by so much bad baseball that even when we have a great player like this, we still treat them like they're just some other guy sometimes. And that, that's part of just, losing a lot of baseball games.
Yeah. I wonder what the 113 comments had to say underneath that.
I bet 33 of them agreed, and everybody else was talking about how this guy's the biggest idiot they've ever seen.
Yeah, and I think Carrie says it right. Ellie was benched for a couple innings today, so there you go. Punishment served, time served there.
Ellie, you're done. I don't care that we're up 18 runs. You're out of here.
Yeah, for those errors early in the week.
There's the accountability Francona was talking about. You're done.
Yeah.
Last week you screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Just watch from the bench now. But anyway, yeah.
Take a break.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, now we got we got our minor league wrap up in a segment we like to call 3 Up, 3 Down. These are guys that we're profiling that had 3 guys that had pretty good weeks and 3 guys that did not have the greatest of weeks. And for the 3 Up, the AAA guy that had a really good week was Ty Callahan for the Bats. He had a homer, 2 RBIs, hit 352 for the week. But the stat I was most impressed with, he had, I think today or yesterday, 4 walks just in one game and 7 walks for the week. So like that patience, obviously I think we talked about before the show, or we're talking about in the earlier part of the show, that walks are not necessarily the most valued stat anymore. But I think not striking out is definitely a valued stat. You know what I mean? And not just giving away outs easily is kind of a thing. For AA, it's Ricky's guy, Austin Hendrick, right there in the middle there for Chattanooga. He went 6 for 15, hitting 400 for the week with a double, 2 RBIs, and 2 home runs and 6 RBIs. Just had a great week, and we actually profiled him earlier for being one of the 3 down guys that he did not have a good week. I think last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then for single A, Yerlin Confidant had a home run, 4 runs. And also I forgot Anthony Stefan, 2 outfielders for the Dragons that had decent weeks. Anthony Stefan had 2 doubles, a homer, a triple, and 5 RBIs. So actually, 2 guys that had decent look for the Dayton Dragons. Any thoughts on these 3 guys? Or
I got a question for you, because you obviously get a little bit deeper and you have a little bit more of this. Can Callahan play anywhere else besides second?
They put him in the outfield as well. I think he plays left.
So he can.
So yeah, he might be a potential call up sooner than later.
Well, that's what I'm leading it to, is because you're not going to get that spot with McLean there. But if he could play other places, can he? Is he a good left fielder? That kind of thing. So it's nice that he has the ability to do more.
Yeah, I think he's a decent outfielder. He's not necessarily, I think, his strongest position. I think he's more of an infielder, if I have to say, and his power and hitting kind of lends to that. But, I don't know. If they need a guy in a spot, I wouldn't be surprised. Hendrick was supposed to be the guy that was destined. Ricky tells me about this almost every time I see him, about how Hendrick has had like a rough go. He got drafted in 2020, the pandemic year. Or maybe the year before, but there was no minor league, so he took like a whole year off of baseball. 2021, it was rough, but he was a first-round draft pick. Hopefully, he can get himself going. This was a good week for him to do that. So,
for sure.
Yeah. 3 down for those guys. We unfortunately don't like to profile these guys and call them out, but hopefully, this is just the one time they appear for us. And
I see one guy on here who shouldn't be on here. That's for sure.
Yeah, your guy. We'll talk about him definitely. The single A guy that had kind of a rough week, Sammy Stafura for Daytona. He went 1 for 8 and 6 strikeouts for the week, so not necessarily the best hitting week for him. He's kind of a guy that we've been keeping an eye on. We profiled, I think, for our farm system episode. In Double A, Dom Patelli went 3 for 19. 150 average for the week and 7 strikeouts. So we really want to make sure that this is we get enough strikeouts at the major league level, and we profiled that Hines and Benson strike out at kind of large rates. We kind of want to make sure these guys kind of figure that stuff out in the minors so that they can move up and hopefully, produce at the major league level. And then AAA, your guy Luis May had a rough outing. He went 2 innings, gave up three earned runs for a 13.5 ERA.
Oh,
The thing that was troubling is that I think it was yesterday or today, he had 4 walks in a game and only 1 strikeout for
he's
this
wild.
week.
He is a wild guy.
Yeah. It wasn't the best of weeks for him. Any thoughts about your guy May or any of the other guys?
I think it's just, you see the possibility for him with the fastball, and you kind of see the swag that he's got with the hat, and you're like, man, it would be awesome if this guy could round into form and be a help on the big league ball club. I like he was popping the mid at 103 a couple times this past week also. So I just think, if he could ever figure it out to a consistent level, he's like a high powered Diaz right now. Like, he doesn't even, he walks more guys than even Diaz does at this time. But, if he could ever figure it out and be a consistent, over the plate type guy with his stuff, I think he could be a solid closer in the future. But it's tough, it's tough when you have that kind of stuff and you can't control it. That's how you end up with 4 walks and you give up 3 runs and things like that in in outings like that. So he's still my guy. It's just a rough week is all.
Yeah, and hopefully this will be the last time we see him on there. He's only 23, still young, got definitely a lively arm. So at least right now we don't need him to be the closer right now, so he can work on his stuff, and hopefully he'll before this his ERA was like 1.9. So like it's we're kind of really spinning it the wrong way of really profiling Mr. May, is that he had some good weeks going into this. This week just happened to be a bad one for him, and hopefully it'll be one of his last bad weeks of his AAA career. But
yeah, I mean, dude, 6'5", 240. Like he is a monster out there. Like it's just his entire appearance. I would just love to have the lights go out at Great American Ballpark and him come out of the bullpen. I just think that'd be epic. So I'm still rooting for him. He will be the closer of this team one day.
Yeah, and actually, he's not even the biggest guy that could be potentially be a closer. Maxwell is 6'8", Kerry says, and 285. My goodness, that's a big
guy. Should be playing offensive line and for the Bengals.
Yeah, they could use him, I think. But anyway, yeah, and that's our 3 up, 3 down. We are coming on to the end of the show. We're going to be profiling the next couple series. We got the Miami Marlins. We're going to be traveling to them. I think, is it 3 or 4 games?
I believe it is. I got it pulled up here. Marlins for 3, and then we got then we go to Colorado.
So yeah, and I think we talked about this with Elliot. Shout out to Elliot for coming on the show last week. He said this stretch is pivotal if the Reds want to be contenders. They got to kind of beat up on the lower of the competition. The Marlins, we talked about a little bit, I think, off show, is that they have a decent start, but they're the Marlins. You know what I mean? Like, they'll realize that they're Marlins sooner or later. And Colorado is just awful. I think they got 3 wins on the year. So, like, I think Kerry pointed out that Mr. Lodolo is going on Monday as a new dad. So he's going to have that new dad energy going, hopefully, to get the job done on Monday night against that. So, they're both away series, but both of the opponents, I think, 2 out of 3 seems reasonable for both series. What do you think?
I was going to take it even a step further. Are you thinking 5-1? I mean, I think we've got to potentially sweep one of these series and maybe only drop one. I know that's a tall task. I think 4-2 is probably more like realistic, but like Elliot said, we've got to beat up on these guys. These are bad baseball teams. They do have a solid starting pitching. For the Marlins, they do have a solid starter, but their lineups are soft. I think 5-1 should be the what we're striving for. Obviously 2 sweeps would be the perfection, but 5-1, 4-2 should be the ideal record coming out of these 2 series next.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at minimum 24 runs a game, right? Is that what we're thinking?
That's a starting point now. Now, when you do this once, that's the baseline. When you gotta work, you gotta be better than that going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, come on, you have to. I mean, but I think I joked with you. Now they're going to score 3 runs for the whole series. But it's the Marlins and the Rockies, and they're going to be at mile high. So the ball should be flying, at least for the Colorado series. I could definitely see that being a sweep. You know what I mean? They took care of business against the lowly Pirates taking care of business is kind of the theme of the week for this week. And 5-1, I'd be pretty happy next Sunday for sure.
For sure. I think, 4-2, 5-1, it's got to be the idea, because then you've got the Cardinals coming in for 4, and while they're not great, they are still a division opponent. So, and then we get into Washington, Atlanta, Houston, a couple good teams there after St. Louis. So, yeah, I've got to try to stack some wins here before we get into some of those other series. But yeah, man, I feel pretty good about the team overall. Roger, the hittings felt a lot better after we had those games where he couldn't score a run. Hey, WrestleMania. Hopefully, John Cena brings it home for those early 2000s kids who grew up on the Dr. Thugonomics. One last time, but just got to start stacking some wins here for when they actually play some of these better teams.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely it's good to be 3-3 this week, despite some of the weird, wacky things that happened in the Mariners series. And 4-2, I guess, is what I'll go with, and I think that's more than reasonable. Obviously, I think the Marlins are going to it's on the road. They should have some sort of fight in them, seeing that the Marlins will be at home, Colorado will be at home. But yeah, we should be looking at a above 500 record going into next week, and hopefully taking care of business against the Cardinals, who I don't know. They are a division opponent, but I don't know. I hope the Cardinals are going to be terrible this year, but we'll see.
I agree. I know I'm completely with you. I just meant, sometimes there's a little extra on these type games. You know what I mean? Not that they're any good. They're sitting they're 9-13. Their pitching staff's they got a couple good guys in the lineup, but to me, that's a team that we're better than this year, in my opinion. Again, other things could happen where we play like crap. We don't score any runs. We've seen it happen this year, unfortunately. So let's win 4 or 5 against these next 2 series, and then come back home and kick the shit out of the Cardinals. That'd be a perfect week.
Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals scored 24 runs in a game yet. So
no, they couldn't score 24 in a series.
Oh,
yeah. Now they're gonna throttle us.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's stop the show. Stop the show.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else, Doug?
No. Roger, thank you for having me on tonight, and thank you guys for bringing the Red Hot Reds podcast to Ohio Sports Network. I really enjoy what you and Ricky provide in terms of conversation about the Cincinnati Reds. I think you guys are super knowledgeable. I just want more people to get and watch this show, because I promise you will learn something. You will be entertained by Ricky and Roger. So, guys, thank you, and thank you for having me on Red Hot Reds Live tonight.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you, Doug. We really appreciate all that kind words and all the support over the time. And yeah. Well, hopefully next week this time 5-1. Love to see it.
5-1. That's the goal. 5-1.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Carrie, blowing up our chat per usual.
Carrie, you're a stud.
Spread the word. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get it out there. Also, tomorrow night, 9 p.m., Ohio Sports Talk with Doug and Jordan. So get out there, watch them, the recap the week. Did you see is the Cavs game over yet, or is it getting there?
It's the third quarter, late third quarter.
Okay.
They are up 12, actually 6 minutes to go in the fourth. So they're up 12. Feels like a win. Feel pretty good about it. Hopefully they can keep it going, man. I predicted them to win in 5. So we'll definitely talk about it a little bit more tomorrow night.
Yeah. Go Cavs and go Reds.
Thank you.
Red hot.